Let's be honest. You don't usually realize you're being used while it's happening. You only see it clearly when you've already invested time, energy, attention, and sometimes even money. And suddenly, you start feeling like something is off. Like you're always the one showing up, always the one giving, always the one trying to keep things moving forward, while she only shows up when it benefits her. And here's the uncomfortable truth you need to hear. You don't get used in one big obvious moment. It happens slowly through patterns you ignore because you want things to work out. You tell yourself she's busy, she's stressed, she's just going through something. And maybe sometimes that's true. But other times, you're just filling a role in her life, not building something real with her. So you need to start paying attention to behavior, not words, because someone can say the right things and still treat you like an option. You might notice she's very present when she needs help, support, money, attention, or emotional comfort. But when you need the same energy back, she's distant, unavailable, or suddenly too busy. That imbalance is not random. It's information. You also need to understand this. When you're being valued, effort is mutual. But when you're being used, effort is selective. You'll feel it in how often you're the one initiating conversations, making plans, solving problems, or trying to prove yourself in the connection. This isn't about becoming paranoid or assuming the worst about everyone you meet. It's about being aware so you don't keep pouring into something that only takes from you. Because once you see the signs clearly, you stop confusing attention for affection and access for genuine interest. Now, let's break down the obvious signs you need to watch for. 1. She only shows up when she needs something from you. When you start realizing that someone only appears in your life at very specific moments, it can feel confusing at first. You might even try to defend it in your head, telling yourself that people get busy, that life is complicated, or that you're overthinking things. But deep down, you notice a pattern that doesn't sit right with you. She doesn't just randomly check in to see how you're doing or to build a connection with you. Instead, she shows up when there is something she needs from you and then disappears once that need is met. You might find that she becomes very warm, very attentive, and very engaging when she wants your help, your time, your attention, or even your emotional support. Suddenly she's responsive. She replies faster. She sounds interested. She makes you feel like you matter in that moment. But the moment her situation is resolved, the energy shifts. The conversations become shorter, the response is slower, and sometimes she even goes completely quiet until the next time she needs something again. What makes this tricky is that she may not even be doing it in an obviously manipulative way. It can look subtle, almost natural, which is why you overlook it. You start thinking, maybe this is just how she is, maybe she's not good with consistency, or maybe she just doesn't communicate often. But if you step back and look at the pattern, it becomes clear that her presence in your life is conditional. It depends on what she can get in that moment, not on building something consistent with you. You also need to pay attention to how you feel after these interactions. If you're honest with yourself, you might notice that you feel slightly drained or unbalanced afterward. You gave attention, energy, and effort, but what you received back wasn't equal or steady. And yet, because she comes back with the same charm whenever she needs something, you get pulled back into the cycle again. This is where awareness becomes powerful, because once you see this pattern clearly, you stop mistaking access for interest. You stop confusing temporary attention for genuine connection. And most importantly, you start understanding that real interest doesn't only show up when there's something to gain, it shows up consistently, even when nothing is being asked for. 2. You are always the one initiating contact and planning everything. The second sign is something you only notice when you start being honest about effort, because in the beginning, you might not think too much of it. You tell yourself you're just being thoughtful, that you're just the type of person who likes to check in, plan things, and keep communication going. But over time, a pattern starts to reveal itself. You are always the one initiating contact, always the one reaching out first, and always the one trying to keep the connection alive. You send the first message, you start the conversations, you suggest meeting up, you ask how her day is going, you check in when she goes quiet, and in return she responds, but rarely leads. It feels like you are doing all the emotional and conversational work while she simply reacts to what you put in front of her. At first, this might not feel like a big issue because she is still replying, still engaging, still present in some way. But presence without effort is not the same as interest. What you need to understand is that real connection is not one-sided. When someone is genuinely interested in you, they don't leave all the responsibility of communication on your shoulders. They also reach out, they also check in, they also think about you without being prompted. But when you are the only one initiating everything, you are not building a mutual connection. You are maintaining one alone. And here is where it becomes even clearer. Notice what happens if you stop initiating. If you don't text first, does she step in to continue things, or does the communication simply fade away? That answer tells you more than anything she says, because effort reveals intention and consistency reveals interest. You also need to pay attention to how this dynamic affects you over time. When you are always the one pushing things forward, it can start to feel like you are chasing something that is not naturally meeting you halfway. That creates emotional fatigue. You begin to question yourself, wondering if you are doing too much or not doing enough, when in reality, the issue is imbalance. This is not about playing games or withholding communication. It is about recognizing when you are the only one trying to keep something alive. Because when interest is real, effort does not need to be forced. It is shared. 3. She is emotionally unavailable when you need support. The third sign is one of the most overlooked because it only becomes obvious in moments where you actually need emotional support. At first, everything might seem fine. She may talk to you, laugh with you, share parts of her life with you, and even seem comfortable opening up. But when the situation shifts and you are the one needing support, comfort, or understanding, something changes in her availability and energy. You might notice that when you are stressed, overwhelmed, or going through something personal, she becomes less present. Maybe she replies late. Maybe she gives short responses. Or maybe she simply avoids the conversation altogether. It is not always loud or obvious. Sometimes it is subtle, like changing the topic, delaying replies, or acting like your situation is not as important as hers. And this is where the imbalance starts to reveal itself. A real connection is not only measured by how someone treats you when everything is fine, it is revealed in how they show up when you are not okay. If someone is genuinely interested in you as a person, they will not only enjoy your good energy, but also respect your low moments. They will not disappear when things get inconvenient or emotionally demanding. But when someone is only using your presence for comfort, attention, or convenience, their support becomes selective. They are available when they need you to listen, advise, or reassure them. But when roles reverse, the effort disappears. You end up feeling like you are emotionally available for them, but they are not the same way for you. Over time, this creates a quiet emotional distance. You may still talk, still interact, still stay in contact, but you begin to feel alone in your experiences. You start holding things back because you already expect that she won't really engage with them in a meaningful way. That is a strong sign that the connection is not balanced. You should also pay attention to how you feel after opening up. If you consistently feel ignored, minimized, or emotionally unsupported, that is not something to brush off. Because emotional presence is not about being physically or digitally available. It is about being there in a way that actually matters when it counts. 4. Her interest increases only when she feels she might lose you. The fourth sign is subtle, but once you understand it, you start seeing it everywhere, and it has a lot to do with timing. You might notice that her interest in you is not consistent. Instead, it rises and falls depending on whether she feels like she is about to lose your attention. When you are fully available, fully engaged, and always showing up, she seems comfortable, almost indifferent. But the moment you pull back even slightly, her behavior starts to change. This is where things can get confusing for you, because suddenly she becomes more responsive. She texts more often, she checks in, she shows curiosity. She may even act more emotionally open than before. And because of that shift, you might assume that her feelings are growing stronger, but what is actually happening is not always deeper interest. It is reaction to distance. When someone only increases their effort when they feel your attention slipping away, it shows that their engagement is tied more to validation than genuine connection. It means your presence alone was not enough to keep their consistent interest, but your absence creates a sense of loss or uncertainty that pulls them back in. That cycle can make you feel like things are improving, but in reality, it often resets once they feel secure again. You need to understand this pattern clearly. Real interest does not need to be triggered by withdrawal. When someone is genuinely invested in you, their effort is not dependent on fear of losing you. It is steady. It is consistent. It does not require emotional distance to activate care or attention. What makes this even more complicated is how it affects your perception. You start associating inconsistency with depth. You think the ups and downs mean something special is happening. But what you are really experiencing is a cycle of attention that responds to scarcity, not stability. And over time, this can keep you locked in a pattern where you feel like you need to pull away in order to receive basic effort or care. That is not a healthy foundation. A strong connection does not require emotional games or distance to maintain interest. It remains balanced without needing to be triggered. Once you recognize this, you stop overvaluing reactive attention and start paying attention to consistency instead. 5. She avoids commitment but enjoys your full attention. The fifth sign becomes clear when you start paying attention to what she avoids more than what she says. Because at first, she may seem very present in your life. She talks to you regularly. She enjoys your company. She shares moments with you. And there is a sense of connection that feels real enough to keep you invested. But whenever the conversation shifts toward anything serious, structured, or forward-moving, something changes in her energy. You might notice that she becomes vague when it comes to defining what you two actually are. She may avoid clear labels, avoid direct answers, or change the subject when things start moving in that direction. It is not always a straight rejection. Sometimes it comes in softer forms, like saying she is not ready, or she doesn't like pressure, or she just wants to go with the flow. And while those phrases can be genuine in some situations, the pattern matters more than the words. What you need to understand is this. When someone enjoys your attention but avoids commitment, they are often comfortable with the benefits of your presence without wanting the responsibility that comes with it. They like the emotional support, the consistency you bring, the time you invest, and the way you show up. But they are not necessarily willing to define, structure, or fully invest in the connection in a clear way. This creates a situation where you are emotionally active while she remains emotionally uncommitted. You are building expectations, even if quietly, while she is maintaining flexibility, and that imbalance can keep you stuck in uncertainty because you are always waiting for clarity that never fully arrives. Another thing you need to watch is how she reacts when you start pulling back your attention or asking for clarity. If she avoids the conversation, deflects it, or gives temporary reassurance without any real direction, it often means she is more interested in keeping things as they are rather than moving them forward. Because clarity would require responsibility, and avoidance allows her to keep the benefits without definition. You should also notice how this affects your mindset over time. When someone keeps you in a space without direction, you start filling in the gaps yourself. You start hoping, assuming, and interpreting small gestures as signs of something deeper. But real intention does not leave you guessing all the time. A healthy connection does not fear clarity. It may develop slowly, but it does not constantly resist definition while still enjoying full access to your attention. 6. She keeps you in her life without clear direction or intention. The sixth sign is something that often keeps you stuck the longest because it doesn't look like rejection on the surface. In fact, it can look like she still wants you around. She still replies, still engages, still shows up in your life in some capacity. But if you look closely, you'll notice something important. There is no direction, no progression, and no clear intention behind the connection. You might feel like you are in her life, but not actually going anywhere with her. There is contact, but no clarity. There is interaction, but no structure. You are present, but not prioritized in a meaningful way. And over time, this creates a strange emotional space where you are involved, but not truly included in anything real. What makes this confusing is that she does not necessarily push you away. Instead, she keeps you close enough to stay engaged, but distant enough that nothing is defined or developed. You are not fully in and not fully out. You are just in a holding pattern. And in that space, you are the one who starts trying to give it meaning. You begin to interpret small actions as progress. A good conversation feels like progress. A warm message feels like progress. A moment of attention feels like progress. But when you step back, nothing is actually moving forward. There is no consistency in direction, no effort toward building something stable, and no clear investment beyond convenience. This is where many men start to lose clarity, because when someone keeps you in their life without defining your place in it, you naturally start trying to earn that definition. You put in more effort, you try to be more understanding, more patient, more available, thinking that eventually things will click into place. But in reality, lack of direction is often a decision, not a misunderstanding. You also need to notice how this affects your mindset. Over time, being in something without direction creates emotional uncertainty. You start questioning where you stand, what you mean to her, and whether you are doing something wrong. But the real issue is not your effort. It is the absence of intention on the other side. A genuine connection may not move fast, but it does move with purpose. Even if things are not defined immediately, there is still a sense of mutual direction, mutual clarity, and mutual effort towards something real. Without that, you are not building a relationship. You are staying in something that is being maintained, not developed. 7. You feel drained, confused, and undervalued after interacting with her. The seventh sign is often the most important one because it is not about what she does. It is about what happens to you. After all the conversations, the attention, the mixed signals, and the effort you keep putting in, you start to notice how you actually feel. And if you are honest with yourself, you feel drained, confused, and undervalued more often than you feel secure or appreciated. At first, you might not link those feelings directly to her. You might think it is just a stressful time in your life, or that you are overthinking things. But when you step back, you realize a pattern. Every interaction leaves you slightly more uncertain than before. You are not at peace. You are not clear. You are constantly analyzing, questioning, and trying to figure out where you stand. That confusion is not random. It usually comes from inconsistency. When someone is clear about how they feel and how they treat you, your mind doesn't have to work overtime trying to interpret everything. But when attention comes and goes, when effort is uneven, and when communication feels unpredictable, your mind starts filling in the gaps, and that mental effort is exhausting. You also start noticing that you are giving more than you are receiving. You invest time, attention, emotional energy, and sometimes even priorities in your life start shifting around this connection. But what comes back to you does not match what you are putting in. And slowly, that imbalance turns into emotional fatigue. Another important thing to observe is how often you feel like you are trying to earn consistency. You might find yourself adjusting your behavior, being more patient, more understanding, more available, just to keep things from slipping away. But in a healthy connection, you should not feel like you are constantly trying to qualify for basic attention or respect. Over time, this dynamic can make you question your own value, not because something is wrong with you, but because the situation itself is unclear and uneven. And that is why this sign matters so much. It shows you the real impact of the connection on your mental and emotional state. Because at the end of the day, real interest does not leave you confused all the time. It brings clarity, not chaos. It makes you feel seen, not drained. At the end of the day, you need to understand this clearly. When someone is genuinely interested in you, it does not feel confusing all the time. You are not left guessing your value, your place, or your importance in their life. The connection feels balanced, not one-sided. But when you start noticing patterns of inconsistency, emotional distance, and effort that only shows up when it benefits them, that is information you should not ignore. You are not meant to constantly prove your worth. A healthy connection gives clarity, respect, and mutual effort without forcing you to question where you stand.